Our guest, he is becoming our go-to healthcare expert, especially in the age of COVID. Paul Seegert helps businesses manage their second largest expense, and that has to do with employee health care, but he does it with the twist. He actually improves the benefit package for the employees while cutting the cost. Paul, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. So there are two, what do they call it? Irresistible force meets an immovable object. We're seeing this happen in one case. Doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers, x-ray technicians, firefighters for that matter, cops. Some of them are getting fired, suspended, and some are suing on the one hand because they don't want this COVID vaccine mandate. But then we've got doctors, so far a few and far between, saying you don't have a vaccination, go find another doctor.
It's a pretty incredible time we're in where this arbitrary line in the sand gets drawn. 86% of the cost drivers in our healthcare system are chronic illnesses that are, for the most part, lifestyle-based or the result of lifestyle choices. And yet, I think if you were to ask these doctors if they will continue to treat smokers, they would say yes. And I'm not, passing any judgment on whether someone smokes or not. It's their free will to do so. Obviously, it has health outcomes. They will continue to treat people who are overweight or obese. In fact, we've added 10 points to the childhood obesity ranks in this country due to COVID lockdowns, which I think, watching the cost drivers in healthcare like I do, that's going to have a much longer-term, longer-lasting, more negative effect on our healthcare system in terms of cost and quality of life than COVID. It's incredible, really, that we're at this place where this kind of virtue signaling is going on.
Now, of course, their excuse is they say, okay, well, I'm treating fatty, but they're not going to, nobody else is going to catch what they've got.
Yeah, well, it's the very same cohort of people. 86% of the cost before COVID was driven by a certain high-risk profile group. Those are the very same people that are getting hospitalized and dying from COVID. And the vaccine, folks with the vaccine can still transmit the disease. As you rank vaccines and their effectiveness, this is down there close to the flu vaccine in terms of the power that it has to be durable and prevent someone from transmitting the disease to others. It doesn't do that. So that's not a super strong argument.
Well, I just got a C and a D from the Heritage Foundation, so I'm not gonna get graded by you because that was not my argument. That was theirs. So here's the deal. This is the thing that kills me. Is isolation drops your immunity level. Telling people you can't go to the gym without a vaccination lowers your, for instance, that increases your obesity, and it can affect your heart function, your heart rate, et cetera, et cetera. In some of these ways, these people are doubling down in the worst imaginable manner for the people most vulnerable to COVID.
Well, exactly. We even and the effects of this, you have doctors that are saying, I'm not going to treat people that choose to be unvaccinated, which ignores all the stuff that we just talked about. It also ignores natural immunity. If you're really following the science, you should say, and you really believed in this cause, maybe you would say, I would like to see proof of vaccination, or I would like to see that you're in a low-risk category, or that you have natural immunity. And you can easily get an antibody test, even a T-cell test, to show that. That's not what we're seeing. So then you have hospital systems around the country that have put in mandates, like Methodist in Houston, and then they lose 156 employees like that. And while they're a large system and a large community, you look at the effect that has in smaller areas, at smaller hospitals. There's a hospital in upstate New York. I believe just today they announced that they will not be offering labor and delivery services. It's
yep,
the only
I saw
hospital
that.
in that county. I mean, so now they've lost enough nurses that they can't staff to a point that they can deliver children. And
this has been the case since day
incredible.
one. Everything they do is, in my opinion, everything they've done is make things worse.
I talk to hospital CEOs that are clients of ours. We've had the good fortune to work with and have a pretty front row seat to rural healthcare. And I had numerous CEOs of hospitals, in fact, one who has a show like yours in Missouri that I was on. And he shared with me that he had no plans to put in a mandate because while there's a risk from COVID, very small if you're not in a high-risk category, the risk that he would add to his community by not being able to staff the only hospital within a reasonable drive would be irresponsible. And that would be the outcome. And now you have this mandate that's come down that's going to put a one-size-fits-all approach, and you have such different situations between urban areas and rural areas. That effect is already hitting this system. You had rural hospitals that were already having staffing shortages because that nurse in a rural area could go become a traveling nurse. In December of 2019, a traveling nurse made $1,600 a week. Today, they can get $3,500 a week. So we were already draining the talent out of those areas and they were in a tough position. And now you give even more nurses a reason to not stay, and you put those communities at risk.
You know, one of the things about this is that, first of all, I've never understood if the hospital takes in COVID-positive patients, isn't that the big risk versus having an employee that somehow managed 18 months without getting COVID? That the well employees somehow a bigger risk than the people coming through the emergency room doors having COVID?
Well, I would submit to you that very likely that employee got COVID.
Oh, yes, exactly.
It's very possible, right?
Yes.
And we don't make the effort, seemingly, at large in our conversation that we have in our public space in this country to acknowledge that. Although, before this mandate that just came out, that's still getting worked out and likely to be fought out in the courts, before this came out, I was becoming a little more optimistic about the direction this thing was heading in because of the fact that there were employers out there like Kettering Health in Ohio, a hospital system that added an exemption to their vaccine mandate that said it allowed for medical exemptions, religious exemptions, and natural immunity. So their employees could show through an antibody test, hey, I have natural immunity, I got and recovered from COVID. So, boom.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And then every 90 days, they would test them. And if ever the immunity went away, then they would ask them to get vaccinated in the next 30 days. Well, by not being coercive or totalitarian in the way they'd approached it, they were getting more buy-in. They didn't face staffing shortages. They listened and worked with their staff and their culture. And I think that was a model that I was hoping we would duplicate. And then, we have this top-down, one-size-fits-all announcement that is going to lead to more trouble.
All right. Paul Seegert is our guest. He's with PCS Advisers. If you own a business and you want to cut your costs for healthcare while improving the benefit package for your employees, you can go to PCSadvisers.com. You're listening to the Andy Caldwell Show. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
If your family and your community are important to you, then you are in the right place. You're listening to the Andy Caldwell Show.
I'd like to remind all of you, you got till tomorrow to get rid of Gavin Newsom. You got to vote yes to recall Gavin Newsom to get rid of him. And that ballot's around your house somewheres. If not, then show up at a polling place tomorrow and ask for a provisional. Our guest is Paul Seegert. He is a managing partner of PCS Advisers. This is a company that has clients all across the country. And what they do is they help employers lower their health care costs for their employees while improving the plan that the employees get. I don't know. How do you do that exactly, Paul?
Well, you stop buying at retail blindly. I mean, you have a whole healthcare system in our country that was 5% of our GDP when Medicare was created. It's a fifth of our economy today, and it essentially self-regulates because of the power of lobbying. And it doesn't matter what party's in power, who has supermajorities of what. It consistently gets worse. If you're waiting for government to fix it, it's not going to happen. But I believe, I'm actually optimistic in spite of saying all that, because businesses who have a real stake in this are fixing it one at a time, and we're showing them how.
All right. So again, they just need to go to
supply chain.
They just need to go to PCSadvisers.com and they can get a hold of you.
Absolutely.
All right. And again, folks, this is the second largest expense for our businesses. And of course, it's killing working class people because your deductibles and out of pocket and all that sort of stuff went through the roof.
Andy, you want a quick report card?
Yeah.
How we've done since the Affordable Care Act kicked in?
Yeah.
Deductibles are up 87%. The average American, when their kid breaks their leg at a soccer game, is going to come out of pocket $5,000 when it's all said and done. And premiums are up more than that. Their payroll deduction at their employer for their premium has outpaced pay raises 2-to-1. And this is 2 weeks old. Insured Americans hold $141 billion in medical debt, and they don't include in that number people that were responsible enough to call the hospital and say, can I get on a payment plan? So we can do a lot better. We have the best health care in the world, and the way that we choose to pay for it is ridiculous.
Well, thank you for that. Again, folks, PCS Advisors. If you own a business, email them. Go to their website and contact them to help find out what they can do for you. So we've been talking about this train wreck, and there's multiple train wrecks happening. You've got doctors, nurses, and other healthcare providers, emergency responders, firemen. I got an email from a guy at Vandenberg Air Force Base, or Vandenberg Space Base, I guess they call it now. He's going to lose his job. He doesn't want to get the vaccination. We've had numerous doctors and nurses, therapists, and others in this show. The local hospitals are bearing down, and that was before Joe Biden's mandate.
Right.
So here's one of the other train wrecks. You got people quitting or being fired. Then you have some refusing service. And then you got somebody like Governor DeSantis in Florida says if any business, school, or government agency asks for proof that you're vaccinated, they're going to be fined $5,000.
I mean, this is a big mess. I mean, I just saw today that there's a bunch of first responders in Canada that are protesting outside their capital. They don't want to be forced to get vaccinated. And you look at the picture, it's you can't read someone's health by a picture, but for the most part, you can at least see that it's not a group of obese people. They're fit folks. And if you're not in a super high risk category, then this is, not that serious. The Telegraph, I believe, from the UK put out yesterday that the UK is not going to recommend vaccination for teenagers because if you're a young teenager, you have you're 6 times more likely to get to have an adverse reaction related to your heart from the virus, or from the vaccine, excuse me, as opposed to getting hospitalized as a result of vaccine. So you're 6 times more likely to get hospitalized from the vaccine itself than from the sickness. And we've just got so far off track making this a political science conversation instead of a science conversation that it's amazing. I don't even know how it got this off track, really.
I've never, ever seen, so I've been on radio for almost 30 years. I have never seen a bigger push to intimidate people, coerce people, silence people. So, for instance, there was a doctor up in Northern California contacted me. Not only were they telling them that, you got to get vaccinated, you're going to lose your job, they also talked about reporting them and maybe yanking their license for spreading, quote unquote, misinformation, i.e.
Right.
telling them about HCQ or ivermectin or vaccine injuries or this, that, and the other. They were going to take their license for just literally talking about it.
Right. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. My kids are vaccinated to go to school, but I'm a thinking person. I'm in the healthcare space, and if I was a high-risk category, would I get vaccinated? I would get vaccinated. If I was at high risk, I'm not, and my family's not, and we all got COVID and recovered. My whole office got it, and everyone was fine. I have 5 kids that went through our house, about 1 kid per 3 or 4 hours, and I'm grateful for that. But it's amazing. Why should I then? I mean, we got antibody tested, and hey, we have immunity. Why would I get vaccinated? We have a global scarcity of vaccines. That would be senseless, really. I mean, it wouldn't be based on the science. So it's a really odd time when you have people in this country. I flew across the country. I've actually flown through the whole pandemic. I was in the St. Louis airport, the only passenger I could find. I took one of the eeriest videos you'll have ever seen. I mean, I'm going to make a coffee table book. I'll send you one. It's so incredible that you have people that are calling for travel restrictions. Like, I shouldn't be able to travel, even though I've caught COVID, I have immunity, and I can prove it. I shouldn't be able to travel. And these are not scientists or doctors or, not even people that are well informed, but they have an audience, and they've stoked so much fear that if you, depending on the news outlet that you listen to, there are a lot of people that truly do believe if you catch COVID, you're flip a quarter, and that's your chances of death, and that's just not true.
Still has a 99.9 something % survival rate for people that do not have, that are not at severe risk. Yeah. It's scary because we've been able to see how quickly I read Dietrich, the book Bonhoeffer by Eric Metaxas, and it changed my entire perspective of World War II. And one of the reasons it changed my perspective is to see how quickly Germany flipped to a totalitarian state. Well, look at how quickly we flipped to a totalitarian mindset. You, non-essential business. You, non-essential church. You, unvaccinated, you can't go to the gym, indoor restaurant, and you can't even visit your regular doctor anymore.
It's incredible. It's a sign of the times, and I hope, I'm an eternal optimist, my mother tells me. I hope that we take this as an opportunity you see the power of the media. We can scare everyone into doing things. How about we use this great power that we have to actually educate people about what it means to build a healthy lifestyle and have a healthy immune system.
That's exactly right.
That's the defense you have.
Exactly right.
All this and the stuff that we haven't faced yet. We have a powerful body that can that can handle all these things for the most part if we take care of it.
All right, Paul, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm always enjoy coming on your show.
All right, Paul Seegert, PCS Advisors. Again, if you have a business, want to lower your costs for healthcare and get your employees a better plan, go to PCSadvisors.com. We'll be back with Mike Brown. Stay tuned.